He heard it on his first night. A whisper from the stone. The old B-wing was a mausoleum of forgotten souls, smelling of damp concrete and ancient despair. Its unspoken custodian was Old Man Kai, an inmate with eyes like muddy rivers, whose silence spoke volumes. Kai asked, not for favors, but for Patienza quiet understanding of the prison's unspoken rules. Jaxson offered a simple observation. This wall, it feels cold different. And for that unwitting question, the attention of B-wing was authorized. Jaxson lay on his cot, staring at the scarred concrete wall he shared with the adjacent cell. The persistent, low hum he'd heard wasn't just in his head, it vibrated through the stone. It was a prototype meant to download archival memories, each one a compressed emotional masterpiece. He felt a strange, cold certainty as he pressed his ear to the wall. A cascade of faint internal clicks and groans echoed 1,000 dormant neural pathways coming to life. In perfect, terrifying synchronization, the wall seemed to hum back. And then the past played. The sound was impossibly, achingly vivid. It was a chorus of forgotten voices that felt like a half-remembered truth, flooding his soul with a tide of forgotten hope and crippling betrayal. Utterly lost in the symphony of whispers, Jaxson drifted towards sleep, the echoing voices weaving themselves into his own subconscious. When he awoke, the wall was silent. A cold, unsettling clarity filled his mind. He reached up, touching the small, faded tattoo on his arm, the inmate number of his old cellmate, a promise he'd sworn never to forget. He froze. A cold spike of wrongness shot through him. The ink felt too smooth. He was certain the tattoo always listed Cell 23, a constant reminder of his failure to protect his friend. But now the number was Cell 19. A subtle, empty change. A creeping dread washed over him. He found Old Man Kai in the yard. His fingers trembled as he asked, "Kai, my old cellmate, what cell was he in?" There was a long, confusing pause. "Cellmate," Kai finally replied, his voice raspy. "Jaxson, you've always been in Cell 20. Alone, just like everyone else in B-wing." He stumbled away, the world tilting violently on its axis. His cellmate wasn't just gone from his memory. He was gone from history. She was erased. His horrified eyes darted to the concrete wall. A small, almost invisible crack had appeared near where he'd listened. He realized with a surge of pure terror that the wall wasn't just echoing memories. It was an overwrite, playing at a frequency the real world couldn't perceive. Frantic, Jaxson dove into the prison's oldest archives, searching for the designer of B-wing, the long-deceased architect, Silas Thorne. He found whispers and old blueprints of a 19th-century prison designer obsessed with collective penance. Thorne believed a shared memory, purged of individual flaws, could create perfect, compliant inmates. He found a decrypted report from 1923 reviewing B-wing's only test phase. The warden wrote of a hauntingly quiet cell block. But he also noted that several inmates left in a state of profound, inexplicable solitude. They were grieving friendships and shared experiences they could not name. The project was deemed too unsettling and shut down. Jaxson finally understood. Each resonance from the wall targeted a personal bond and surgically removed it from his memory. The first resonance took his cellmate. What would the second take? He tried to fight it. He slammed his fist against the wall, but it merely absorbed the shock, the ghostly whispers continuing to hum in his head. He was fighting a paradox, a virus of connection. For a sleepless week, he watched the crack in the wall, a slow expansion marking the systematic erasure of his relationships. Then, the ghostly whispers in his mind began to swell again. The second resonance was beginning. He felt a wrenching, visceral grief for a mentor he couldn't place. He looked at a faded photo of his old Krutha leader was a blank space. He was the only one who remembered his old connections. His entire world was unraveling, person by person. Desperate, he sought out the location of B-wing's central resonance chamber. In its place stood a plain, newly plastered wall labeled Condemned Access. The chamber had erased itself to he was chasing a ghost. He found the answer back in his cell, inside a loose brick near the floor. It was the private journal of Silas Thorne. The pages revealed a beautiful, horrifying madness. Thorne hadn't created a prison. In his twisted mind, he had created a communion. He believed the memories didn't erase the past. They integrated it. They took a flawed, chaotic connection and absorbed its essence into the very fabric of the prison walls. The final entry chilled Jaxson to the bone. "My masterpiece is nearly complete." But it lacks an essential core. It needs a central consciousness. The final resonance will not overwrite. It will assimilate. The B-wing will finally have its collective voice. Jaxson stared at the wall. The cracks weren't draining his past. They were growing, seeking a focal point. He wasn't just losing his connections. The final resonance was meant to absorb him. With dawning horror, he noticed two subtle, fresh scorch marks in the journal beneath the entry. They matched the missing records of two guards who had vanished during B restoration. He was living in an empty shell, a tomb of his own making, surrounded by walls that remembered. The whispers in his head rose to a painful crescendo. The third resonance, his entire memory of his family vanished from his mind, from reality. Now, only the finale remained. The crack in the wall began its final, inexorable spread toward the center of his cell. He couldn't destroy the walls. He had to break the pattern. Thorne was obsessed with collective integration. The answer had to be individual discord. He scrambled through his meager belongings and found it a small, cheap, analog harmonica he'd smuggled in. It was a gift from his forgotten sister, a noisy reminder of his rebellious youth. He pressed it to his lips. It played a clumsy, off-key, utterly dissonant blues note. As the crack reached its zenith, ready to integrate his consciousness, Jaxson pressed the harmonica against the wall, right over the spreading fault line. The noisy, imperfect sound filled the cell. It was a sour, ugly, beautifully human discord. The perfect, seamless chorus of the wall faltered, screeching like a machine-fed and unprocessable data type. The crack trembled. The two signals, one of connection-stealing integration, the other of chaotic human individuality, battled in the air. With a final, agonizing grind of shifting stone, B-wing fell silent. The crack froze, inches from completing its network. Jaxson had survived. The final integration would never be completed, but his victory was hollow. The erasures were permanent. He was utterly alone, the sole warden of his own memory, forced to live in a reality where his connections were perfectly, silently integrated. He walked to the wall. He saw a single, faint, shimmering ripple trace a clean path through the dust on its surface. He had saved his soul, but in doing so, he had damned them to an eternity of frozen, perfect collective memory. The story of Jaxson and the echoing wall is a haunting warning about the price of perfect unity and the profound beauty found in our most individual, discordant memories. If this tale of B-Wing's haunting unity struck a chord with you, please hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story from our collection. Now, we want to hear from you. What is the one individual memory you would never sacrifice for belonging? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for listening. Be careful what connections you lose. Some of them never leave. They just wait for their collective voice, and for you, the chorus is about to begin.